They called it many names: Sasquatch, Skookum, Wild Man of the Woods. But to most, it is simply Bigfoot. For over 2 centuries, tales of a massive hair-covered creature have haunted the forests of North America, described as half-human, half-beast, towering nearly 8 feet tall, with eyes that gleam like amber in the dark. Bigfoot is more than a legend. It's a phenomenon, a story that refuses to die. Every culture that settled or lived upon this land has spoken of something like it. The First Nations of the Pacific Northwest told of the Tees, Emekwes, and the Sask-Ets, powerful forest guardians who walked between worlds, half spirit and half flesh. To them, these beings weren't monsters, but warnings, reminders that man should never believe he owns the wilderness. When European settlers arrived, they brought their own fears, and those fears fused with these ancient tales. The wilds of America, vast and unexplored, became a breeding ground for mysteries. The first written reports of Bigfoot date back to the early 1800s. Trappers, loggers, and miners spoke of massive footprints left in the mud beside rivers, prints that no bear could have made. Others told of inhuman cries echoing through the mountains at night, of thrown rocks and shadowy shapes just beyond the firelight. They described the stench of rot and musk that clung to the air after such encounters, as though the forest itself had exhaled something ancient and wild. The stories spread, whispered in logging camps, retold in frontier towns, and passed along the edges of civilization. But what makes Bigfoot unique, what gives this legend its grip, is not just the stories themselves, but the strange evidence that keeps surfacing decade after decade. In 1958, a bulldozer operator named Jerry Crew discovered a set of enormous footprints near Bluff Creek, California. Prints over 16 inches long, pressed deep into the earth. He cast them in plaster, and a local newspaper picked up the story. The word Bigfoot was born. Almost overnight, the creature became a sensation, part folklore, part modern mystery. But that was only the beginning. Because in 1967, the most famous footage in cryptozoology appeared, the Patterson-Gimlin film. 2 men, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, were horseback riding through Bluff Creek when they claimed to spot a large, hair-covered creature walking upright across a dry riverbed. Patterson jumped from his horse and filmed as the figure turned its head, looking back over its shoulder, a moment burned into the collective imagination of the world. The grainy film, shaky and raw, showed what appeared to be a female Bigfoot striding through the wilderness. Skeptics called it a hoax, believers called it proof, and even today, with all our technology, the film remains unresolved, too real to dismiss, too unbelievable to confirm. But Bigfoot isn't just one creature in one place. Sightings stretch across the entire continent, from the dense rainforests of the Pacific Northwest to the swamps of Florida, where it's known as the skunk ape, to the snowy ridges of the Rockies and the pine barrens of the East. Descriptions vary. Some say it's a towering ape, others a shaggy wild man, or even a lost offshoot of humanity. But one detail remains constant. It's always just out of reach. Seen, but never caught. Modern science tends to dismiss the legend. Skeptics point out that no bones, no body, no DNA have ever been found. How, they ask, could a species of massive primates survive unseen for centuries? The forests of North America, after all, are vast but not endless. Yet those same forests have hidden wolves for generations, concealed mountain lions in places thought empty, and revealed new species of mammals even in the 21st century. Could something like Bigfoot exist in the uncharted folds of this land? Hidden, wary, and perhaps far more intelligent than we imagine. Some researchers think so. Cryptozoologists, scientists who study unknown or hidden animals, have collected hundreds of plaster casts of footprints, analyzed hair samples, and mapped clusters of sightings that stretch in patterns across wilderness corridors. A few genetic studies have even found unidentifiable DNA fragments, strands that don't match bears, humans, or any known animal. None of it is definitive, but it's enough to keep the mystery alive. And then there's the folklore, the deeper layer that lies beneath all of it. In many native traditions, these beings were not animals, but people. A parallel race of ancient giants who retreated into the forests long before humanity spread across the land. Some tribes say they were banished for their violence. Others say they chose exile, disgusted by human greed. They watch us from the shadows, guardians and ghosts both. In these stories, Bigfoot is a remnant, a warning from the old world that balance must be respected. Across cultures, the pattern repeats. In Tibet, there is the Yeti. In the Himalayas, the Meitei. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, the Orang Pendek. In Australia, the Yowie. Everywhere humans have ventured, the legend of the wild man follows. Always the same shape, the same shadow, the same fear. Could all these myths share a single source, a memory of something real? Some anthropologists believe these stories are echoes of our own evolutionary past, ancient encounters between early humans and other species, like Homo erectus or Denisovans. Perhaps these beings were not entirely extinct when our ancestors spread across the globe. Imagine a fragment of that lineage surviving in isolation, adapting, evolving, avoiding us. Maybe Bigfoot is not an impossibility, but an ancient relative we've simply refused to see. And yet, part of Bigfoot's power lies in the fact that it may never be proven. It lives in the borderlands between truth and belief, that thin space where mystery breathes. Every time technology promises to solve it, the legend grows stronger, not weaker. The lack of evidence becomes its own kind of evidence. It whispers that the world is still bigger than we think, that there are still shadows untouched by the light of certainty. In the end, Bigfoot may not be a question of proof at all. It may be a reflection of something buried in ourselves, the part of humanity that longs for wilderness, that remembers what it was like to live not above nature, but within it. When people search for Bigfoot, maybe they're not chasing a creature. Maybe they're chasing that feeling, that ancient primal awareness that we are not alone in the dark woods. So what is Bigfoot really? A hoax? A spirit? A forgotten species? Or a mirror held up to our own fear of the wild? We may never know. But one truth endures. The forests of the world still whisper, and something in those whispers keeps calling us back. Because even in the age of satellites, of maps and drones and endless data, there are still places where mystery survives, and in those places the legend of Bigfoot still walks.